Welcome, and thank you for being here tonight. Let the room grow soft and dim around you, the way the whole world goes soft and dim in the last moment before you fall asleep. When the edges of things blur, and the light behind your eyelids turns to a gentle grey, and you begin, without meaning to drift. There is nothing you need to hold on to now. No thought you have to finish, no worry you have to solve, no duty you have to keep before morning. You can let it all go loose. If you find this quiet hour helpful, you might leave a gentle like, or tell me in a comment where in the world you are drifting off from tonight, and then let even that small thought sink away like a stone into still water. From here on, all you have to do is breathe and listen, and let me tell you slowly, in the dark, the long and tender story of three souls who fell asleep so that a whole kingdom might be saved, and who are sleeping still. Tonight we are going to talk about sleep itself, which is a fitting thing to talk about as you sink toward it. Because the three souls at the heart of tonight's story are called the dreamers, and what makes them extraordinary is that their sleep is not like ours. They did not lie down for a single night to wake refreshed in the morning. They lay down forever. Three of the wisest and most powerful beings in a dying kingdom gave up their waking lives entirely, gave up everything, so that they could sleep an endless sleep and pour all the strength of that sleep into holding shut a single terrible door. They are, all three of them, still asleep right now in the world of their story, dreaming the long dream that keeps a nightmare locked away. And tonight we are going to learn who they were and why they did it and what it cost them, and we are going to do it gently, at the pace of a slow tide going out, until you are asleep too. There is a beautiful strangeness in a story where sleep is not weakness or absence, but power, where to fall asleep is the greatest and most heroic thing a soul can do. We tend to think of sleep as the opposite of action, as a giving up, a switching off, a small nightly death. But in the world of the dreamers, sleep is the strongest force there is. It is by sleeping that the three of them hold the whole kingdom's fate in balance. It is by dreaming that they keep the darkness at bay. Their sleep is not an absence but a presence, not a stopping but a doing, the most important work in all the world performed in perfect stillness with their eyes closed. And there is something wonderful in falling asleep to a story that tells you sleep is mighty, that to close your eyes and sink down into dreams is not to abandon the world but, sometimes, to hold it together. It makes the drifting off feel less like a leaving and more like a joining, a settling in alongside three great souls who understood, better than anyone, the deep quiet power of rest. To understand the dreamers, we have to understand what they were protecting the world from, and to understand that, we have to go down, all the way down, into the ruins of a kingdom called Hallownest, which is one of the most beautiful and most sorrowful places ever imagined. So let us go there together, slowly, and let the going down itself be part of what carries you towards sleep, the way descending a long quiet staircase in a hushed old house can make you drowsy just by its rhythm. Hallownest lies far beneath the surface of the world, deep under the earth, in the dark places where the sun never reaches. It was once a magnificent kingdom, a vast civilization of insects and small creatures who had been given the gift of thought and language and memory by a strange and radiant ruler, and who built, in the deep dark, a shining nation of cities and gardens and archives and towers. To understand how it came to be, we have to go back further still, to a time before the kingdom, when the deep places were wild and wordless, and ruled by older powers. In those ancient days there was a great being of light, a radiant goddess who lived in the dreams of the sleeping and was worshipped by a tribe of moths, and for an age she held sway over the dreaming dark, the brightest thing in a world that had known only shadow. And beneath everything, deeper than the deepest root, there was an ancient darkness, a living emptiness pooled at the very bottom of the world, older than the light and patient beyond understanding. Between the light above and the dark below, the small wordless creatures crawled and hungered and lived their brief blind lives, knowing nothing of either. And then a stranger came, a pale being of quiet and terrible majesty, arriving from somewhere far away, and where he walked, the wordless creatures woke. They gained thought and memory and language and the ability to know themselves and one another, as though a lamp had been lit inside every small dark head at once. And the creatures who received this gift took the pale stranger as their ruler and their god, and even the old moth tribe, in time, turned away from their radiant goddess to worship the new pale light who had woken the world. And so the goddess of light was slowly forgotten, set aside, left alone in the dreaming dark, while the whole world she had once ruled turned its face towards someone else. Remember that, gently, for it matters later. A forgotten god is a dangerous thing, and her forgetting was not an ending but a long, quiet, gathering silence. Under the pale ruler the kingdom rose, and it was called Hallownest, and for a long golden age it was the shining wonder of the underworld. There was a great city of tears, where rain fell forever from the lake suspended above it, so that the pale spires always glistened and wept. There were libraries full of knowledge. There were quiet green places, and deep dark places, and high windy places, all of them connected, all of them alive, all of them part of one enormous and thriving kingdom under the ground. And then it fell, slowly, terribly, from the inside, the way a great tree can die while still standing. A sickness came, a thing called the infection, a burning plague that lived in dreams and spread through sleeping minds and hollowed out everyone it touched, filling them with a mad orange light until nothing of who they had been remained. The kingdom sickened and emptied and sank back down towards silence, until Hallownest was no longer a living nation, but a vast and gorgeous tomb, a haunted maze of empty halls where a few scattered survivors clung on among the ruins of everything that had been. The source of that sickness was the forgotten goddess, the radiant being of light who had ruled the dreaming dark before the pale king ever came, and who had been set aside and abandoned when the kingdom turned to worship him. A god who is worshipped is warm and generous. A god who is forgotten becomes something else, something desperate, something that will do anything at all to be remembered again. And so the forgotten goddess, at the very bottom of her long abandonment, reached out in the only way still left to her, into the dreams of the sleeping. What she sent into those dreams was the infection, a burning light that seemed almost gentle at first, a warmth, a glow, but did not stay gentle. It spread from dreamer to dreamer, and where it took hold it drove the mind away, filling the bug with a blank and burning orange fire, hollowing out thought and memory and self, until nothing was left but a mindless, suffering thing lit from within. It was her revenge for her forgetting, and it was patient, and it was merciless, and it spread through the kingdom's dreams the way a fever spreads through a sleeping body, quietly, in the dark, while everyone slept. That is the crucial thing about the infection. the thing that makes the dreamers necessary. It could not be fought the way you fight an ordinary enemy. It did not have a body you could strike. It lived in dreams, in the sleeping minds of the kingdom's people, spread by a goddess who reached into slumber to poison it. You cannot stab a dream. You cannot build a wall against a thing that comes to you only when you close your eyes. And so the sickness could not be met with armies or blades or walls. It could only be contained, held, sealed away by a power that could work in the realm of dreams itself. And that is exactly what the Pale King set out to build. But before the very end, before all hope was lost, the ruler of that kingdom made a desperate plan to stop the sickness. And that plan is where the dreamers come in. Because the burning light could not be destroyed, only, perhaps, held at bay. And so the ruler of Hallownest, a pale and quiet and sorrowful king, understood that the sickness could not be killed. It could only, perhaps, be contained, sealed away, locked inside something strong enough to hold it, and empty enough to keep it, forever, in the dark. He made a vessel to hold it, a living lock, a child born of the deepest darkness, raised to be perfectly empty inside, so that the burning light of the infection could be poured into it and sealed away, held in a hollow heart that had no thoughts of its own to be corrupted and no will of its own to be broken. This vessel was called the Hollow Knight, and it was sealed away inside a temple, bound in a great black egg of a chamber, with the whole burning sickness of the kingdom locked inside it. And for a time it held. The kingdom might have hoped to heal. The making of that vessel is a sorrowful thing, and I will tell it softly. The Pale King turned, in his desperation, to the ancient darkness at the very bottom of the world, that living emptiness older than the light. From that darkness, mingled with his own pale essence, he and his queen brought forth children, many children, born down in the deep black abyss beneath the kingdom. These children were meant to be empty, hollow, without mind or will or voice, because only a truly empty thing could hold the burning light without being consumed by it. Countless of them were born in the dark, and from among them one was chosen, the one thought to be purest and most hollow, and it was raised up and named the Hollow Knight, and made ready to receive the sickness and hold it forever. The others remained below, in the dark, a whole generation of empty children born for a single purpose. It is one of the heaviest parts of the kingdom's story, and we need not carry all of its weight tonight, but it is worth knowing, because it is the foundation on which the whole desperate plan was built, and because the small knight who comes later is one of those very children returned. But a lock, however strong, needs a key that is turned and then kept turned. A door, however heavy, needs someone to hold it shut. The sealing of the Hollow Knight was not a thing you could do once and walk away from. It had to be maintained, held, kept in place by a power steady enough and patient enough to never falter, never weaken, never let go, for as long as the sickness inside strained to break free, and that could not be done by anyone awake. The waking world was too full of distraction, too full of the decaying kingdom's chaos, too full of the very infection they were trying to contain. To hold the seal, you would have to be somewhere quieter than the waking world, somewhere deeper. You would have to be asleep. And so the Pale King sought out 3 beings, 3 of the greatest souls in all of Hallownest, and he asked them to do a terrible and beautiful thing. He asked them to fall asleep and never wake, to give up their waking lives entirely, to lie down in 3 separate resting places across the kingdom, and to sink into an eternal dream, and to spend the whole strength of that endless dreaming, holding shut the seal on the hollow night. 3 sleepers in 3 quiet chambers, dreaming together across the miles of dark, their combined power, the lock that kept the nightmare bound. These 3 are the dreamers, and their names are Monomon the teacher, Lurien the watcher, and Hera the beast. Tonight we are going to meet all 3 of them, one by one, and learn who they were before they slept, and why each of them agreed to give up everything, and where they lie sleeping now, and what their long dream means. And I promise you that although this is a story about sacrifice, and about a fallen kingdom, and about beings who gave up their lives, it is not a frightening story, and I will not tell it in a frightening way. It is, underneath everything, a story about rest, about 3 souls who lay down their burdens by taking up the greatest burden of all, and who sleep on, faithfully, in the quiet dark, holding the world together with their dreaming. There are worse things to fall asleep thinking about than that. Before we meet each of the 3, let us understand a little more about the strange nature of dreams in this world, because it is beautiful, and because it is the very thing that makes the dreamers possible, and it is a lovely thing to let your mind rest on as you grow drowsy. In Hallownest, dreams are not merely the idle wanderings of a sleeping mind, the way we tend to think of them. Dreams are a real place. There is a dream realm, a whole layer of reality that lies just beneath the surface of the waking world, reachable only through sleep, where the minds of the sleeping drift, and where the memories of the dead sometimes linger on. It is a soft and shifting place, lit by strange pale light, quiet and deep and separate from all the noise and ruin of the waking kingdom. And because it is separate, because it is deeper and stiller than the waking world, it is the perfect place from which to do a thing that requires absolute, unbroken concentration for all of time. In the dream realm, a sleeper is undisturbed by the crumbling of the kingdom around their body. They can hold a single thought, a single purpose, forever, without the waking world ever intruding. The dream realm is also where something lingers after death, a faint residue of the mind, a soft glowing essence that the dead leave behind, drifting in the dream like motes of light. The memories of those who have passed can sometimes still be found there, echoes of who they were, gentle and fading, held in the deep quiet of the dream. It is a tender idea that nothing is entirely lost, that some soft trace of a mind persists in the realm of sleep, even after the body is gone, waiting to be remembered, waiting to be gently released. Much of the dreaming kingdom is like this, a vast quiet archive of lingering souls and fading memories, held in the pale light, at peace. And it is in this realm, among these gentle echoes, that the dreamers dream their endless dreams, not alone, but surrounded by the soft, persistent memory of the whole kingdom that came before them. This is why the seal on the hollow night had to be held by dreamers rather than by guards. A waking guard grows tired. A waking guard is distracted, is frightened, can be reached by the infection, can falter and fail. But a sleeper, sunk deep into the dream realm, holding a single unwavering intention across an endless dream, is steady in a way no waking creature could ever be. The 3 dreamers, asleep in their 3 chambers, are not passive. Their sleep is the most active thing imaginable. Every moment of their endless dreaming is a moment of holding, of keeping, of maintaining the lock, a constant quiet labor performed in perfect stillness. They work harder, in their sleep, than almost anyone in the kingdom ever worked awake, and they will go on working, dreaming, holding, for as long as the dream lasts. There is also a thing called the dream nail, and it matters for our story, so let me tell you of it gently. It is a strange and delicate weapon, though weapon is not quite the right word, because it does not truly harm the living. It is more like a key or a needle that can pierce the veil between the waking world and the dream realm. With the dream nail, one can reach into the mind of another, read their surface thoughts, hear the quiet things they think but do not say. And with the dream nail, one can pass through into the dreams of a sleeper, entering the dream realm itself. It is by means of the dream nail that the dreamers can be reached at all, that anyone can enter their sleeping minds and learn what they are dreaming. Without it, they would be utterly unreachable, sealed away in sleep, as surely as the hollow night is sealed away behind them. Hold on to that image of the dream needle, the soft key that opens the door of sleep. It is a gentle thing, and it will matter later. There is something quietly profound in the idea of a needle that opens dreams, that lets one mind touch another across the veil of sleep. It suggests that even the deepest sleep is not truly a wall, that a sleeping mind is still there, still dreaming, still holding its thoughts, only turned inward, only gone deeper. When the dream nail touches a sleeper, it does not wake them. It slips gently through into the place where they are dreaming and lets their quiet thoughts be heard, the thoughts they think in the depths where the waking world cannot follow. And what a tender thing that is, to be able to hear what a sleeper dreams, to know the quiet heart of someone who has gone down into sleep and cannot speak. It is through this soft needle that we come to know the true feelings of the dreamers, Monomon's quiet hope, Lurian's steady faith, Hera's motherly longing. Without it, they would be only sleeping shapes, silent and unknowable. With it, we can hear their dreaming hearts. And there is a gentleness in that which suits this hour, the idea that even in the deepest sleep, the heart goes on quietly speaking and can still gently be heard. Now, the three who became the dreamers were not ordinary bugs. They were among the greatest beings in all of Hallownest, each one a leader, a mind, a power in their own right, each one at the very peak of their own world before they gave it all up. And this is part of what makes their sacrifice so profound. They were not nobodies with nothing to lose. They were a brilliant scholar, a devoted watcher, and a queen. They had lives full of meaning and knowledge and love and power, and they laid all of it down, deliberately, with open eyes, and closed those eyes forever, for the sake of a kingdom that was probably going to die anyway. Let us honor that by learning who each of them was. And it is worth noting that they were, in a sense, higher beings, or close to it, souls of unusual power and depth, the kind of beings whose dreams were strong enough to hold a seal against a goddess of light. Not just anyone could have become a dreamer. The role required a mind of extraordinary strength, a will of extraordinary steadiness, a spirit deep enough to sink into an endless dream and hold a single purpose there across an age. The Pale King did not choose his three sleepers at random. He chose the greatest he could find, the scholar whose mind could hold vast and difficult truths, the watcher whose devotion could never waver, the queen whose will could bend an entire wild kingdom to her purpose. He needed the strongest souls in Hallownest, and he found them, and he asked them to sleep, and they agreed. That is who the dreamers were, not ordinary bugs, but the very finest the kingdom had, laying down their finest gifts for the sake of everyone else. Let us begin with Monomon the teacher, because hers is in some ways the gentlest story, and the one most full of knowledge and of love. Monomon was a scholar, the greatest scholar in all of Hallownest. She was a being something like a jellyfish, soft and translucent and strange, drifting in the pale light, and she was the kingdom's chief researcher and its most revered teacher. She dwelt in a place called the Teacher's Archives, out in a region of drifting fog and floating jellyfish creatures called Fog Canyon, and her archives were a wonder, a great glowing structure full of the accumulated knowledge of the kingdom, full of preserved specimens and careful notes, and the patient work of a lifetime spent trying to understand the world. She wanted to know things. That was the core of her. She wanted to understand how the world worked, what things were made of, why they behaved as they did, and she gathered knowledge the way other beings gather treasure, for the pure love of it, and she taught what she learned to any who would listen. She was a being of reason and inquiry in a kingdom that was sliding into madness, and there is something quietly heroic about that. As the infection spread, as dreams turned to poison and minds turned to burning light, Monomon kept studying, kept thinking, kept trying to understand. She even studied the infection itself, that terrible burning sickness, trying to comprehend it, trying to find in it some pattern that reason could grasp. She was not a warrior. She did not fight the darkness with a blade. She fought it with the one weapon she trusted above all others, which was understanding. The patient light of a curious mind turned upon a terrible thing. Her archives held all manner of quiet wonders. There were preserved specimens, carefully kept, the fruits of a lifetime of gathering and cataloguing. There were her notes and her experiments, the slow, patient accumulation of a great mind at work. There were the strange floating creatures of the fog, the drifting jellyfish things that were, in a sense, her kin, pulsing softly through the mist. And there was a warmth to the place, a sense of a life devoted to something gentle and good, the calm pursuit of knowledge for its own sake, the quiet joy of understanding a little more of the world each day. When you imagine Monomon, imagine not a cold intellect but a warm and curious one, a teacher who delighted in sharing what she knew, a soul who found in understanding not power but a kind of peace. And it is worth saying that Monomon's kind of courage is a rare kind, the courage to keep thinking clearly when everything around you is going mad. It would have been easy, as the kingdom sickened, to give in to fear, to abandon reason, to be swept up in the rising tide of the infection's burning light. Monomon did not. She kept her mind clear and her curiosity alive, right up until the moment she closed her eyes for the last time, and even then, even in her endless dream, she kept reasoning, kept weighing, kept trying to understand what would truly be best for the kingdom she loved. That is a quiet and unglamorous kind of heroism, the heroism of the clear mind in the dark time, and Monomon embodied it completely. And Monomon was not alone in her archives. She had an apprentice, a student she loved, a small quiet bug named Quirrell, and the bond between them is one of the tenderest threads in the whole tapestry of Hallownest. Quirrell was her assistant and her protector, her companion in the long work of study, and the two of them shared the deep and gentle closeness that can grow between a great teacher and a devoted student across many years of working side by side. When the time came for Monomon to become a dreamer, to fall into her endless sleep, she gave Quirrell a task, and the task was an act of trust and of love. She asked him to help seal her away, and then to leave, to go out into the world and forget, to carry her mask far from the archives, so that no one could easily undo what she had done. and so that her apprentice would not have to keep a sorrowful vigil over her sleeping body for the rest of his days. And Quirrell did as she asked. He left, and he wandered, and for a long time he forgot who he was and where he had come from, drifting through the world with an empty place in his memory where his teacher used to be. But something in him remembered, some deep pull, and across the long years he made his way slowly back, all the way back down into Hallownest, all the way back to the archives, drawn by a longing he could not name. And when at last he arrived at the tank where Monomon slept, his memory returned to him, and he understood. He had come home to say goodbye to his teacher. He sat by her sleeping form at the end of his long wandering, and he waited there, at peace, having completed the circle of his life by returning to the one who had shaped it. There is something unbearably gentle about that. An old student coming home at the end of everything to sit beside his sleeping teacher one last time. Quirrell's whole journey, when you trace it, is one of the loveliest and most peaceful threads in all of Hallownest. Along the way, before his memory fully returned, he was simply a wanderer, a curious and gentle traveller who could be met here and there across the ruined kingdom, resting at benches, gazing out over the strange sights, carrying his mask and his quiet good nature through the dark. He did not know why he was drawn ever downward, ever inward, toward the heart of the kingdom. He only knew that he was, and that pull was the pull of love, the deep memory of a bond that his conscious mind had forgotten, but his heart had not. He was being drawn home to his teacher, across all those years and all those miles, by a love that outlasted even his memory of its object. And when he arrived, and remembered, and understood, there was no bitterness in him, no fear, no regret, only a quiet completeness. He had come home. His long wandering had a purpose after all, and the purpose was this: to sit beside Monomon one last time, and to let her go, and to find his own peace in the letting go. After she was released, Quirrell went to rest by the great blue lake at the edge of the kingdom, content, his journey complete, his heart at peace. It is one of the gentlest endings any soul is given in all of that sad story. When Monomon's sleeping mind is reached, when someone passes through the dream needle into the depths of her endless dream, she reveals something that sets her apart from the other two dreamers, and it is quietly moving, because Monomon, alone among the three, seems to want the seal to break. In the depths of her dream, her thoughts turn toward the idea that it would be better for Hallownest if the seal were undone and the whole desperate arrangement brought to an end. She was a scholar. She had studied the infection. And somewhere in her endless dreaming, her reasoning mind seems to have concluded that the sealing was not a true solution, only a postponement, and that perhaps the kindest and wisest thing would be for it to end, even at the cost of her own long sleep. She holds the seal faithfully, because she agreed to, because she is steady and true, but in her heart of hearts, in the deep quiet of her dream, she hopes for release. She hopes, perhaps, that someone will come and undo what she did, and let the true ending finally come. There is a scholar's honesty in that, a willingness to follow reason, even to the unmaking of her own sacrifice. I find Monomon's position the most quietly moving of the three, because it is the hardest. Lurien has the comfort of certainty, the peace of a faith that never questions. Hera has the comfort of love, the warmth of a daughter to dream of. But Monomon has neither certainty nor comfort. She has only her reason, and her reason has led her to a lonely and difficult place, the place of one who has concluded that her own great sacrifice may have been a mistake, that the thing she gave everything for may need to be undone, that the truest service she can now perform is to hope for her own release. And she holds her seal anyway, faithfully, because she promised, even while hoping to be freed from the promise. That is a very particular and very grown-up kind of courage. The courage to keep faith with a duty, even after you have come to doubt it, while remaining honest about the doubt. There is no self-deception in Monomon, no comforting story she tells herself. There is only clear sight and steady hands and a quiet hope for release. And when release finally comes, it comes as a mercy she had wished for, and her old student is there to see her gently on her way. Now let us leave Monomon drifting in her glowing tank, dreaming her thoughtful dream, and travel across the kingdom to meet the second of the three, Lurien the Watcher, whose story is one of pure and unwavering devotion. Lurien was the Watcher of the City of Tears, the great rain-drowned capital of Hallownest, and he loved that city with his whole soul. He was a tall, hooded, dignified being, quiet and refined and utterly devoted, and he lived at the top of a high tower called the Watcher's Spire, which rose above the endless rain of the city. And at the top of that spire he kept a great telescope, and through that telescope he watched over the city, night and day, year upon year, keeping his patient vigil over the place and the people he loved. That was his whole purpose and his whole joy, to watch. To keep watch over the City of Tears, to hold it always in his gaze, to be the faithful eye that never closed, the guardian who never looked away. He was called the Watcher because watching was who he was. Lurien served the Pale King with a devotion that ran deeper than duty, deeper almost than reason. He loved his king, and he loved his city, and he loved the kingdom, and when the king asked him to become a dreamer, to give up his waking life and fall into eternal sleep to hold the seal, Lurien did not hesitate and did not bargain. He simply accepted. Of the three dreamers, he is the one who gave himself most freely and most completely, asking nothing in return, because to serve was all he had ever wanted, and here was the greatest service he could possibly perform. He renounced his body, his tower, his beloved telescope, his endless watch over the city, all of it, gladly, for the sake of the kingdom he loved. Before he lay down to sleep, he wrote in his journal of his devotion, of how he would always protect the city he had watched over, and then he closed his eyes, and he has not opened them since. The City of Tears deserves a moment of its own, because it was the jewel of the whole kingdom, and Lurien loved it as one loves a living thing. Imagine a great city, built in a vast cavern, its pale towers rising story upon story, and above it all a lake, held somehow overhead, so that water falls forever through the city in a soft and endless rain. The rain runs down every spire and every window and every quiet street, so that the whole city glistens, always, and weeps, always. A place of pale stone and silver water and gentle perpetual sorrow. It is one of the most beautiful places ever imagined, melancholy and lovely in equal measure, and it was Lurien's whole world. From the top of his spire he could see all of it, the towers and the rain and the small lives moving through the streets below, and he watched over it all with a love that never tired and never turned away. There is a particular tenderness in the idea of a watcher, someone whose whole purpose is simply to see, to hold a place in their gaze, to keep faithful attention on the thing they love. Lurien did not rule the city, or build it, or fight for it in any obvious way. He watched it. He kept it always in view. He was its faithful eye, the one who never looked away. And there is a kind of love in that which is easy to overlook, the love of pure attention, the devotion of simply paying heed. To watch over something faithfully, night and day, year upon year, asking nothing, is its own quiet form of love, and it was the form that Lurien gave, completely, to the end. There is a poignancy to Lurien that is different from Monomon's. Where she, in her dream, came to hope for release, Lurien wants only for the seal to hold. When his sleeping mind is reached, his thoughts are a quiet, unwavering chant of duty. Bonds must remain, he thinks, in the depths of his dream. Remain, remain, remain. He repeats it to himself like a prayer, like a vow, holding fast to his purpose with everything he has. He does not question. He does not waver. He does not, as Monomon does, weigh the wisdom of the plan and find it wanting. He simply keeps faith, absolutely, forever, because keeping faith is who he is, and he would rather sleep an eternity holding a bond than break the trust that was placed in him. There is a terrible beauty in that kind of loyalty, the loyalty that asks no questions and counts no cost, and Lurien holds it in his sleep as steadily as he ever held his watch over the city. And his devotion left an echo in the waking world, a small and touching one. The Watcher's spire, his tower, is guarded even now by a company of knights, the Watcher Knights, great armored warriors who keep their posts at the foot of his tower long after the kingdom has fallen, defending the sleeping body of their master. They do not know the kingdom is dead. They do not know their vigil is nearly pointless. They simply keep guarding, faithfully, the way Lurien would have wanted, the way he himself is faithfully guarding the seal, layer upon layer of devotion, guardians guarding a guardian who guards a lock. Even in ruin, even in silence, the love that Lurien had for his city goes on being expressed by those who serve in his name. There is something both sorrowful and beautiful in those faithful knights. They are the last soldiers of a fallen kingdom, keeping a post that no longer has any purpose, defending a sleeper whose city is long empty, holding their ground in the ruins because holding their ground is what they were charged to do, and they have never been told to stop. Nobody comes to relieve them. Nobody comes to thank them. The kingdom they served is dust, and still they stand, and still they guard, faithful past all reason, faithful past the very end of the world they were faithful to. It is loyalty in its purest and most poignant form, loyalty that outlives its object, devotion that does not need to be seen or rewarded or even to make sense any longer. They simply keep faith because keeping faith is who they are, the way it was who Lurien was. In them, his devotion lives on, echoed and multiplied, a whole company of souls holding a post at the foot of a tower where a faithful watcher sleeps. Now let us leave Lurien in his high tower, dreaming his steady dream above the endless rain, and travel to the darkest and deepest part of the kingdom to meet the third and final dreamer, Hera the Beast, whose story is the most complicated and, in some ways, the most human of the three, because it is a story about a mother. Hera was the queen of a fierce and ancient people, the Spider Tribe, who lived in the deepest and most dangerous part of all Hallownest, a lightless labyrinth of silk and shadow called Deep Nest. She was a great spider, powerful and proud and formidable, a warrior queen who ruled the deep dark places that even the Pale King's kingdom never fully tamed. Deep Nest was its own world, wild and old and only loosely bound to Hallownest, and Hera was its sovereign, feared and respected, a being of enormous strength and will. She was not a scholar like Monomon or a gentle servant like Lurien. She was a beast, in the proudest sense of that word, a creature of the deep dark who answered to no one. Deep Nest is worth dwelling on, because it is unlike anywhere else in the kingdom, where the City of Tears is pale and orderly and drowned in gentle rain, and the archives are bright and warm and full of knowledge. Deep Nest is dark and close and wild, a place of tunnels and silk and glinting eyes in the shadows, a place that existed long before the Pale King came and never fully bent the knee to him. Its creatures are old and strange, and its ways are its own, and it kept a fierce independence even at the height of the kingdom's power. To rule such a place, to be queen of the deep dark, required a strength and a will beyond the ordinary, and Hera had it. She was every inch a sovereign of the wild places, proud and unbowed, a match for anyone, even a king. And that is what makes her bargain so interesting, because Hera did not give herself freely, the way Lurien did, and she did not trade her life for knowledge, the way Monomon did. Hera drove a hard bargain, a queen's bargain, and she set a price on her sacrifice, and the price she set was the most tender thing imaginable. When the Pale King came to her and asked her to become a dreamer, to give up her life and fall into eternal sleep, Hera agreed only on one condition. She wanted a child. She wanted an heir, a daughter, before she went into her endless sleep. And so the Pale King agreed to give her what she most desired, and from that bargain came a daughter, and that daughter's name is Hornet. Think about the shape of that deal for a moment, because it is remarkable and it is sad. Hera agreed to die, essentially, to fall into a sleep from which she would never wake. And the thing she asked for in exchange was not power or wealth or glory, but a child she would barely know. She wanted to leave something of herself behind in the world before she left it. She wanted to be a mother, even if only for the briefest time, even knowing she would have to give up that motherhood almost immediately to her endless sleep. She had her daughter, and then she lay down, and she left the raising of that child to others, and she sank into her dream in the deep dark of Deep Nest, having gained and given up the thing she wanted most, all in the same breath. There is a particular kind of love in that choice which is worth sitting with, because it is the love that looks beyond one's own life. Hera knew she would not raise her daughter. She knew she would not see her grow, would not teach her, would not hold her through the years, would not be there for any of the small daily moments that make up a life together. And she chose to have her anyway. She chose to bring a child into the world and then immediately leave her, not out of carelessness, but out of a fierce and forward-looking love, the love that says, I will not be here, but you will, and that is enough, that is worth everything. She poured her whole future into that one small daughter, and then she lay down and let the future carry her forward without her. It is the love of someone planting a tree whose shade they will never sit in, the love of someone who gives everything to a tomorrow they will not live to see, and it is, perhaps, the deepest and most selfless love there is. And her daughter, Hornet, grew up to become one of the most important figures in all of Hallownest's long, sad story. Swift and fierce and clever, armed with a needle and a thread, Hornet became a protector of the ruined kingdom, a lonely guardian moving through its empty halls with a purpose of her own. And one of the things she guards, faithfully, is her own mother's sleeping body. Deep in the beast's den, in the heart of Deep Nest, where Hera lies dreaming, it is Hornet who stands watch. Hornet who protects the queen, who gave her life and then immediately gave her up. There is something almost unbearably poignant in that. A daughter who barely knew her mother, keeping watch over that mother's endless sleep, defending the sleeping body of a queen she can never truly have known, out of a love that reaches across the great distance of that eternal dream. Think of what that vigil must mean to Hornet. She grew up without her mother, raised by others, knowing that the queen who bore her lay sleeping in the deep dark, holding a seal that could never be released without ending her forever. She could visit that sleeping body, perhaps, but she could never speak with her, never be held by her, never know her as a living presence. Her mother was a sleeper, a dreamer, a shape in the dark, present and absent both at once, there and yet forever out of reach. And Hornet chose, out of all the things she might have done with her life, to become the guardian of that sleeping mother, to stand watch over her, to protect her long dream. It is a daughter's love expressed in the only way such a love could be expressed, across the great gulf of an endless sleep, through the quiet, faithful act of standing guard. She could not know her mother, but she could protect her, and so she did, faithfully, for as long as the dream lasted. When Hera's sleeping mind is reached, her thoughts are those of a mother. She thinks of her daughter. Even in the depths of her endless dream, in the deep dark where she has slept for so long, the queen of deepness dreams of Hornet, of the child she left behind, wondering how she has grown, hoping she is well. It is the most human thing in the whole story of the dreamers, this warrior queen, this fierce beast of the deep dark, dreaming tenderly of a daughter she barely met. She agreed to hold the seal, and she holds it, but what she dreams of, in her heart, is her child. And so, across the great distance of that endless sleep, mother and daughter keep faith with one another. The mother dreams of the daughter she left. The daughter guards the mother she never knew. Neither can reach the other, neither can speak, or touch, or truly meet, and yet the love flows both ways across the dark, steady, and unbroken, a mother's dreaming love reaching up out of the deep sleep, a daughter's guarding love reaching down into it. It is one of the tenderest things in all of Hallownest, that love held fast across the gulf of an eternal dream, and it is a gentle and beautiful thing to hold in your mind as the night grows deep and you sink toward your own sleep. So there they are, the three of them. Monomon the scholar, dreaming in her glowing tank in the fog, hoping quietly for release. Lurien the watcher, dreaming in his high tower above the rain, holding faithfully to his bond. Hera the beast, dreaming in the deep dark of Deepnest, thinking of her daughter. Three of the greatest souls in all of Hallownest, each one having given up everything, each one asleep forever in a separate quiet chamber, each one pouring the whole strength of their endless dream into a single shared purpose, the holding of a seal, the keeping of a lock, the containment of a nightmare so that a kingdom might have a chance to live. And I want you to notice how differently the three of them sleep, because it is a lovely thing to contemplate. Monomon sleeps a thinking sleep, her mind still turning even in her dream, still weighing, still reasoning, still hoping. Lurien sleeps a faithful sleep, his whole being bent to a single steady purpose: remain, remain, remain. A sleep like a held note that never wavers. And Hera sleeps a loving sleep, warm and deep and full of tenderness, dreaming of her daughter in the soft dark. Three sleepers, three kinds of sleep, three different ways of being at rest while still holding on. And together they make a kind of harmony, thought and faith and love, braided together across the miles of dark, 3 notes of a single quiet chord that holds a kingdom's fate in balance. There is a music in it, if you listen, the soft 3-part music of 3 souls dreaming together across the dark, and it is a gentle thing to fall asleep inside. Let us pause here for a while and simply sit with the enormity of what they did, because it is worth honoring, and because it is a peaceful thing to contemplate as you grow more and more drowsy. These 3 did not merely die for their kingdom. Many beings die for their causes in a single brave moment, and it is a noble thing, but it is over quickly. What the dreamers did is stranger and, in its way, harder. They did not die. They are not dead. They are sleeping, and their sleep is a continuing act, a labor that goes on and on, moment after moment, year after year, dream without end. Every instant of their endless sleep is an instant of giving, of holding, of service. They did not make one sacrifice. They make it again, and again, and again, forever, with every breath of their dreaming. That is a kind of devotion almost too large to understand, a generosity stretched out across all of time, and they perform it in perfect silence, unthanked, unseen, in 3 quiet chambers in the dark. Think of how long a single night can feel when you cannot sleep, when the hours stretch and the dark seems endless. Now imagine a sleep that does not end with the morning, that goes on through year after year after year, through the slow fall of a whole kingdom, through the emptying of its cities and the dimming of its lights, and the long settling of everything into ruin. That is the length of the dreamer's sleep. Not a night, not a year, but an age. And through all of it they held, and gave, and kept faith, without waking, without resting in the true sense, without ever once setting the burden down. It is almost beyond imagining, that length of devotion, that depth of patience. And yet they gave it, freely, the 3 of them, because the kingdom needed it, and they were willing. There are few things in any story more quietly astonishing than the sheer duration of what the dreamers gave. And they do it while dreaming of the things they loved. Monomon dreams of knowledge and of a better ending. Lurien dreams of his city and his duty. Hera dreams of her daughter. They carried their loves down into sleep with them, and they hold those loves close in the endless dark. And perhaps that is what makes the eternal dreaming bearable, if it is bearable at all. They are not sleeping in emptiness. They are sleeping in the company of the things they cared for most, holding them, dreaming them, keeping them safe in the only way left to them. There is something in that which is almost comforting, to sleep forever, but to sleep holding what you love, to rest at last, but to rest with your heart still full. And consider too that they did all of this knowing the odds. They were not fools. They were 3 of the wisest and most powerful beings in the kingdom, and they must have understood, at least dimly, that the ceiling might not hold forever, that the vessel might not be perfect, that the sickness might one day return. And they lay down anyway. They gave up everything anyway. That is perhaps the deepest kind of courage there is. The courage to give your all to something that might still fail. To hold a line you are not certain can be held, simply because holding it is right and someone must. They did not require a guarantee of success before they were willing to sacrifice. They saw a chance, however slender, to save what they loved, and they took it, and they gave themselves to it completely, and they asked for no promise that it would work. There is a purity in that which is hard to put into words. It is love without conditions, service without certainty, devotion that does not wait to be sure. and it is worth remembering that they could not see one another. Each of the three slept alone, in a separate chamber, far from the others, across miles of dark tunnel and ruin. Monomon in the fog, Lurien in the city, Hera in the deep dark, each one alone with their endless dream. And yet they were together, joined by the thing they held, united in a single purpose across all that distance. There is a lovely and consoling thought in that souls can be joined even when they are apart, that a shared purpose can bind three sleepers across a whole kingdom of darkness, that no one holding up their corner of the world is ever truly alone, even when they cannot see the others holding up theirs. Somewhere out there, always, others are holding their own corners, dreaming their own dreams, keeping their own faith, and though you may never meet them, you are joined to them by the shared and quiet work of keeping the world together. Now, the story of the dreamers does not end with their falling asleep, because a long time later, after the kingdom had fallen, and the hollow night had begun to weaken, and the infection had begun to seep out anew, someone came to Hallownest who would change everything. A small, silent figure in a pale mask, a traveller, a knight, who came down into the ruins on a purpose of their own. And this small knight, in the course of their journey, would come to the dreamers and would face a terrible and necessary choice about their endless sleep. Let us follow that thread gently, because it completes the story, and because it leads, in the end, to a kind of peace. To understand the night's coming, we have to understand that the Pale King's plan had failed, quietly, from the very beginning, in a way no one realized until it was too late. The Hollow Knight, the vessel made to hold the infection, was supposed to be perfectly empty, perfectly hollow, with no mind and no heart and no will of its own. That emptiness was the whole point of it. A vessel with nothing inside could hold the burning light forever, because there was nothing in it for the light to corrupt. But the Hollow Knight was not truly empty. Somewhere in its making, some small flicker of feeling had crept in, some faint bond, some trace of a heart, and through that tiny flaw, that hairline crack in the emptiness, the infection could still, slowly, seep back in. So the sealing began to fail. Not quickly, but surely. The burning light, locked inside the imperfect vessel, began to leak out again, little by little, over the long years. The Hollow Knight, bound in its black egg chamber, began to weaken, began to glow with the orange light of the very sickness it was meant to contain. And the three dreamers, holding their seals faithfully across the miles of dark, could feel it. They could feel the thing they were containing beginning to strain against its bonds, beginning to press outward, beginning, slowly, to win. Their eternal sleep, which had been meant to be a permanent solution, was becoming instead a long, slow holding action against a defeat that crept ever closer. Imagine what that must have been like, in whatever way a dreaming soul can be said to feel. To have given up everything, to have lain down forever, in the belief that your sacrifice would truly save the world, and then, slowly, across the long dreaming years, to feel that it was not quite enough, to feel the thing you were holding grow heavier, press harder, gain ground inch by inch, and to keep holding anyway, because holding was all you could do, because letting go would only hasten the end, because even a failing seal buys time, and time is precious, and someone might yet come. The dreamers held a line they could feel slowly losing, and they held it anyway, faithfully, without complaint, dreaming their steady dreams while the pressure grew. There is a quiet heroism in that which is almost unbearable to contemplate. The heroism of holding on when you can feel that holding may not be enough, simply because holding is right and giving up is not yet an option. And that is the situation into which the small silent knight arrived. This knight, we come to learn, was itself a vessel, another of the empty children born of the deep dark, one who had been cast out and had wandered far away and had now returned, drawn back to the kingdom for reasons even it may not have fully understood. It came down into the ruins, and it grew stronger, and it learned the secrets of the fallen kingdom, and eventually it learned of the dreamers, and of the seal, and of the failing lock on the Hollow Knight. And it understood that to reach the Hollow Knight, to do anything at all about the failing seal, it would first have to undo the work of the dreamers. It would have to break the 3 seals. It would have to end the endless sleep of Monomon and Lurien and Hera. The knight first encountered the dreamers not in the flesh, but as projections, ghostly apparitions that appeared to it in a green and overgrown place, and later at a memorial raised in the dreamer's honor in a quiet resting ground. And the dreamers spoke to the knight, and what they said was a plea. They asked it to stop. They told it to refrain from meddling with their slumber, to leave the seals alone, to let them sleep and keep the lock in place. They were confused by the knight's intentions and troubled because to them the seal was the only thing holding back the catastrophe, and here was this small silent creature seeking to undo it. Even among themselves, the dreamers were not entirely of one mind about it. Lurien insisted the seals must hold, must remain, as duty demanded. Monomon, and perhaps Hera, understood that the weakening of the Hollow Knight meant the old seal was already failing, that the infection was already returning, and that perhaps the seal needed to be replaced rather than merely maintained. They quarreled, gently, 3 sleepers debating across their dreams the fate of the kingdom they had died to save. That quarrel is a poignant thing when you consider it. Here are 3 souls who gave up everything for a single shared purpose, who have slept side by side, in a sense, across an age of holding the same seal, and now, at the crucial moment, they find they do not entirely agree about what should be done. Lurien, ever faithful, wants only to keep the bond, to hold as they have always held, to trust that holding is right. Monomon, ever the scholar, has reasoned her way to a harder truth, that the holding is failing, that the old plan cannot last, that something new must be allowed to happen, even at the cost of their own long sleep. They are not enemies in this. They are 3 good souls, each seeing the same terrible situation through the lens of their own nature, each reaching for what they believe is best. And in the end, the matter is decided not by their debate, but by the quiet persistence of the small knight, who moves through the kingdom, releasing them one by one, so that the question resolves itself in action rather than in argument. But it is worth pausing on that gentle disagreement among the sleepers, because it shows they were never simple instruments, never mere locks on a door. They were thinking, feeling, reasoning souls to the very end, wrestling even in their dreams with the hardest questions, doing their best to love a kingdom that was slipping away. But the night, in the end, had a purpose of its own, and to fulfill it, the dreamers had to be released. And here I want to be very careful and very gentle in how I tell this, because it could sound like a grim thing, and it is not. To break each seal, the knight had to find the sleeping body of each dreamer in its separate resting place across the kingdom, and pass through the dream needle into that dreamer's endless dream, and there, in the depths of the dream, release them. It was not cruelty, it was not conquest. It was, in a strange and sorrowful way, a mercy, and an ending, and a setting free. The dreamers had been holding their seals for longer than they were ever meant to. They had been sleeping, and holding, and giving, across an age of ruin, in a fight that was slowly being lost. And the night's coming meant that their long labor could finally, at last, come to an end. Let us follow the night, each of them, gently, one last time, and see them released, because there is a peace in it, the peace of a long task, finally set down. To reach Monomon, the knight traveled out into Fog Canyon, into the drifting mist where the jellyfish creatures float in the pale light, and up into the teacher's archives, that glowing structure full of knowledge, past chambers of strange floating things, to the great tank where Monomon slept, suspended in glowing fluid. And there, waiting, was Quirrell, her old apprentice, come home at last to say goodbye. The two travelers, the knight and the old student, stood together for a quiet moment by the sleeping teacher, and then the knight reached through the dream needle into Monomon's endless dream and released her, and her seal broke, and the burden she had carried for so long lifted away at last. And Quirrell, his teacher finally at peace, his long circle finally complete, went off to rest himself, content, having done the one thing he had wandered all that way to do. There is no grief in that scene, not really, only a soft and aching completeness, the feeling of something long unfinished being finished gently. Monomon, who had hoped in her dream for release, was released. What she wanted came to pass. There is a detail in that parting worth holding on to, because it is so quietly kind. Quirrell does not weep, and he does not rage against what must happen. He understands it, and he accepts it, and he is even, in his gentle way, grateful for it. He had wandered the whole ruined kingdom without knowing why, and now he knows. He was coming here, to this tank, to this teacher, to this moment, and having reached it, having sat beside her one last time and seen her released, he is at peace, because his long life has closed its circle, and he has been present for the ending of the one who gave his life its shape. He asks for nothing more. He simply thanks the night, quietly, and goes to find his own rest by the still blue water at the edge of the world. It is the gentlest kind of goodbye, a goodbye without bitterness, a goodbye that is really a kind of completion, and it is one of the most peaceful moments in all the long story of Hallownest. To reach Lurien, the knight travelled into the great city of tears, into the endless rain, and rode down into the depths of the city, and faced the Watcher Knights, the faithful guardians who still kept their posts at the foot of their master's tower. And having passed them, the knight climbed to the very top of the Watcher's spire, up past Lurien's great telescope that still looked out over the rain-drowned city he had loved, to the high chamber where the Watcher slept. And the knight reached into Lurien's steady, faithful, endlessly remaining dream, and released him. And here is a small and tender detail. When the knight woke from that dream, Lurien's sleeping body was simply gone, vanished, his long watch finally over, his devotion finally complete, dissolved away into rest. The most faithful of the three, who had wanted only to hold his bond forever, was at last allowed to lay it down. And somewhere in the city below, one imagines, the rain kept falling, as it always had, over the city he had watched and loved and given everything to protect. There is something fitting in the way Lurien departs, quietly, completely, leaving nothing behind but an empty chamber and a telescope still pointed at his beloved city. He asked for no monument, no thanks, no remembrance. He wanted only to serve, and he served, to the very end and beyond. And when his service was finally complete, he simply faded gently away, like a light going out at the top of a tower, like a watcher finally closing his eyes after the longest of nights. And the city he loved goes on, in its beautiful sorrow, in its endless silver reign, watched over now only by the memory of him, which is perhaps all a faithful watcher ever truly needs, to have watched well and loved well, and then to rest. To reach Hera, the knight travelled down into Deep Nest, into the deepest and darkest and most dangerous part of all Hallownest, through the labyrinth of silk and shadow, all the way down to the beast's den where the Spider Queen slept. And there, guarding her mother's sleeping body, was Hornet. And the meeting between the knight and Hornet at the door of Hera's chamber is one of the most emotionally loaded moments in the whole story, because Hornet, in her way, understands what must happen, and understands what it will cost, and understands who the knight is. She acknowledges the knight as kin, as a sibling of sorts, another child of the deep dark, and she guards her mother fiercely and tests the knight, and then, having satisfied herself, she stands aside. She allows it. She lets the night pass, to release the mother she barely knew, because she understands that it must be done, that the seal must fall, that her mother's long sleep must end for the sake of everything. It is an act of terrible, loving acceptance, a daughter stepping aside to let her mother's endless dream be brought to a close. And the night reached into Hera's dream, where she lay thinking of her daughter, and released her, and the Queen of Deep Nest slept on, her seal broken, her long watch over, her final thought, we may imagine, still resting gently on the child she had loved and left. There is a great deal held in that quiet meeting between the knight and Hornet, more than either of them says aloud. Hornet has spent her life as a guardian of the ruined kingdom, moving through its empty halls alone, and one of her deepest and most private duties has been to watch over the sleeping body of the mother she scarcely knew. To let the night pass is to let go of that duty, to allow the last living connection to her mother to be severed, to accept that the Queen's long sleep must end. And she does it. Not easily, not without testing the night first, not without making the night prove their worth and their resolve. But in the end she steps aside because she understands the greater need, because she has the wisdom and the strength to place the kingdom's fate above her own private grief. It is one of the bravest and most selfless acts in the whole story, and it is performed almost in silence by a daughter at the door of her mother's tomb. And from that moment on, something in Hornet begins to turn toward the night, toward helping rather than hindering, toward standing alongside this small silent sibling in the long sad work still to come. And with all three seals broken, all three dreamers released, the long endless sleep that had held the kingdom's fate in balance for an age was over. The three great souls who had given up everything were, at last, allowed to truly rest. Not the working rest of the eternal seal, the labouring sleep that held and held and held, but real rest, the rest of a task completed, a burden set down, a duty fully and finally discharged. They had held the line for as long as they could, longer than anyone had any right to ask, and now, at last, they could let go. I want to sit with that idea for a while, because it is the heart of why this is such a fitting story to fall asleep to, and because it is genuinely comforting, and the night is deep now, and you are growing heavy and warm. There is a difference between the sleep that holds something up and the sleep that finally lets go. For so long, the dreamers slept the first kind of sleep, the vigilant kind, the kind that is really a form of work, holding a seal, keeping a lock, straining against a thing that wanted to break free. Their rest was not truly rest, because all through it they were laboring, giving, holding on, and then, at the end, they were given the second kind of sleep, the true kind, the kind with nothing left to hold and nothing left to guard and nothing left to do, the kind of sleep you are drifting toward right now, the sleep of someone who has done everything they needed to do and can finally, completely let go. We know both kinds of sleep in our own small way. There is the restless sleep of a mind that will not let go, that keeps holding its worries even into the night, that lies down but does not truly rest because some part of it is still on watch, still braced, still keeping its own kind of seal against the things it fears. That is the sleep that leaves you tired in the morning, because it was never really rest at all, only a lying down that went on laboring. And then there is the other kind, the deep kind, the kind where you finally set everything down, where the watch is truly ended and the holding truly stops, where you sink all the way into the dark and let it take you completely. That is the sleep that heals. That is the sleep that gives you back to yourself. And it is the sleep the dreamers were finally given after their long age of holding. And it is the sleep I hope for you tonight. So let that be the gift the dreamers give you at the end of their long story, the permission to sleep the deep kind, to set down every seal, to end every watch, to stop holding just for tonight, just for these next hours, and to sink all the way down into the true rest that asks nothing and holds nothing and simply lets you be. You have held enough today. You have kept watch enough. Whatever you were carrying, you may set it down now, the way the dreamers set down their endless burden at the very last, and rest. Let us wander back now, slowly, through the 3 resting places, and dwell in each of them a little, because they are beautiful and strange and peaceful, and picturing quiet places is one of the gentlest ways to drift towards sleep. Think first of the teacher's archives, where Monomon dreamed. Picture a great glowing structure out in the drifting fog, its chambers lit with a soft blue-green light, warm and dim and humming faintly. All around, in the pale mist, the jellyfish creatures drift and pulse, rising and falling, glowing softly, moving with the slow, unhurried grace of things suspended in water. And within the archives, the accumulated knowledge of a whole kingdom rests in quiet order, preserved and cared for, the patient work of a great mind. And at the center of it all, in her tank, suspended in glowing fluid, Monomon floats, soft and translucent, drifting gently in her endless dream, surrounded by the light and the knowledge she loved. It is a scholar's paradise, a place of quiet study and gentle light, and there is something deeply restful about it. The hush of a great library, the soft glow of a place devoted entirely to the calm pursuit of understanding. Think next of the Watcher's Spire, where Lurien dreamed. Picture a tall tower rising above the great city of tears, above the endless silver rain that falls forever from the lake suspended overhead. The city stretches out below, pale and beautiful and glistening, its spires catching the rain, its streets washed clean and quiet. And at the top of the tower, the great telescope stands, pointed out over the city, the instrument through which the Watcher kept his endless vigil. And in his high chamber, Lurien sleeps, hooded and dignified and serene, dreaming his steady dream above the city he loved. Imagine the sound of that place, the soft, endless patter of the rain, the hush of a great city at rest, the quiet at the top of a high tower where a faithful soul keeps watch. There is peace in that too, the peace of height and distance, of looking out over a beloved place from far above, of keeping a gentle watch through the falling rain. And think last of the beast's den, deep in deep nest, where Hera dreamed. This is the darkest of the three, the deepest, the most hidden, and yet it too has its own strange peace. Picture the deep, dark places at the very bottom of the kingdom, wrapped in soft silk, warm and close and quiet, far from all the noise and ruin of the world above. It is a wild place, an old place, a place that answers to no one, and in its deepest heart the Spider Queen sleeps, powerful and proud even in her endless dream, guarded by a daughter who loves her. There is a peace in the deep dark too, the peace of being wrapped and hidden and safe, tucked away in the deepest, warmest, most secret part of the world, where nothing can reach you and nothing is asked of you, and you can simply rest in the soft, closed dark. There is a particular comfort in that last image, and it is worth lingering on as you grow drowsy, because it is perhaps the most sleep-like of the three. Think of how a small creature burrows down into the warm dark to rest, wrapping itself away from the cold and the noise of the world, making a small safe hollow in the deep earth where nothing can find it. That is Hera's rest, not the bright, airy rest of the archives, nor the high, wind-swept rest of the tower, but the deep, buried rest of a thing curled safe in the warm dark, at the very bottom of everything. It is the rest of the burrow, the rest of the den, the oldest and most animal kind of rest there is, the kind our bodies remember from long before there were words for it. To be wrapped and warm and hidden and deep, to be somewhere nothing can reach you. That is where Hera sleeps, and it is a lovely place to imagine yourself drifting toward now. 3 resting places, a glowing archive in the drifting fog, a high tower above the endless rain, a silk-wrapped den in the deepest dark. 3 quiet chambers, scattered across a fallen kingdom, each holding a sleeping soul, each a place of its own particular peace. And across the miles of dark between them, the 3 dreamers were joined, their dreams reaching out to one another, their combined strength holding the world together. There is something lovely in imagining that 3 sleepers in 3 distant rooms, connected across all that darkness by the shared purpose of their dreaming, never alone even in their separate sleeps, bound together by the thing they were all holding. Now let us think about what the whole story of the dreamers means, gently, because there is wisdom in it, the quiet kind of wisdom that is good to fall asleep holding. The dreamers are, in the end, a story about the people who hold things together without anyone seeing. Every world, every kingdom, every family, every life is held together by quiet, faithful, unseen labor, by people who take up burdens and carry them without applause, who keep watch through the long nights, who hold the line against the darkness so that others can live in the light. Most of them are never thanked. 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 The dreamers are the purest image of that. Three souls who held the whole world together with their sleep, unseen, unthanked, for an age, simply because it needed to be done and they were willing to do it. If you think about your own life, there are almost certainly people like that in it, or people who were. The ones who held things steady so that you could grow, the ones who kept watch, who worried in the night, who carried burdens you never saw, who gave up things you never knew they gave up, so that your own path could be a little smoother. Parents, often, teachers, sometimes, quiet friends or strangers, or people whose names you never learned. The world is full of hidden dreamers, holding their seals, keeping their watch, asking for nothing. And there is something in the story of Monomon and Lurien and Hera that lets us feel, for a moment, the enormity of all that unseen holding, and be grateful for it, and perhaps resolve to hold our own small corner a little more faithfully in turn. It is a good thought to fall asleep on, the thought of all the quiet love that holds the world together in the dark. And they are a story about the different reasons people give themselves to something larger than themselves. Monomon gave herself for knowledge, for the hope of a better ending, and even in her sleep she kept thinking, kept reasoning, kept hoping to be proved wrong or proved right, a scholar to the last. Lurien gave himself for love and loyalty, for devotion to a king and a city, asking nothing, questioning nothing, holding his bond with a faith so pure it needed no reason. And Hera gave herself for family, for the future, for a child she would barely know, driving a hard bargain not for herself, but for the daughter she wanted to leave behind. Knowledge, loyalty, love. 3 reasons, 3 sacrifices, 3 souls, all bent toward the same quiet purpose. There is a whole philosophy of devotion in those 3, if you care to look for it, and it is a gentle thing to contemplate as you sink toward sleep. There are a few smaller threads around the dreamers that are worth gathering up, because they add gentle texture to the whole, and because quiet details are soothing to drift through when sleep is close. There is the seer, an old moth, one of the last of a tribe that had once, long ago, worshipped the goddess of light before the kingdom ever rose. The seer lived in the resting grounds of the kingdom, among the memorials and the graves, and it was she who gave the small knight the ability to reach fully into dreams, to enter the sleeping minds of the dreamers at all. She was old and gentle, and full of a quiet grief for her lost people, and she longed to be reunited with them in death. And as the night gathered the faint essence of dreams and brought it to her, she drew closer and closer to the peace she sought, until at last she too was able to pass gently on, to rejoin her people in whatever lies beyond. She is a small figure in the story, but a lovely one, a gentle old dreamer of a different kind, who helped the night understand the world of sleep and then found her own rest at the end of it. The seer's tribe were the moths who had once worshipped the goddess of light in the old days before the Pale King came, and they carried the memory and the burden of that ancient worship. When their goddess was forgotten and then turned to poison, the moths chose, in their grief and their wisdom, to forget her too, to seal away their own memory of her, so that her light could not reach them. The seer is the last of those moths, the last keeper of that old and sorrowful memory, waiting alone among the graves for her turn to rest. And there is something fitting in the fact that it is she who teaches the night the ways of dreams, because her people understood dreams better than anyone, understood their danger and their power, understood what it meant to hold something at bay by the discipline of the sleeping mind. She passes that understanding on, gently, at the end of her long vigil, and then she lays down her own burden and goes to her rest, and it is one of the quietest and most peaceful passings in all the story. There is the resting grounds itself, one of the most peaceful places in all of Hallownest, a quiet region of graves and memorials and drifting spirits, where the dead of the kingdom were laid to rest and honoured. It is here that a memorial to the dreamers stands, raised in their honour, marking their sacrifice for any who might pass by and remember. It is a soft and solemn place, full of gentle light and quiet reverence, a place that feels less like a graveyard and more like a garden of rest, where the whole exhausted kingdom seems to lie down and breathe out at last. Of all the places in Hallownest, it is perhaps the one most suited to this hour of the night, this place of gentle memorial and quiet peace, where the dead are honoured and the weary are welcome, and everything is finally still. There is a small piece of the story's own making that I find rather touching. In the earliest imaginings of the dreamers, before the story was finished, all three of them were pictured as looking alike, sharing the same mask and the same shape, three identical sleepers. It was only later that they became distinct, the jellyfish scholar and the hooded watcher and the spider queen, each with their own face and their own form and their own story. But a trace of that original sameness survives, tucked away in the architecture of the kingdom, in identical carved masks on certain archways and monuments, a faint echo of the time when the three dreamers were simply three, indistinguishable, united by their shared and singular purpose. There is something fitting in that echo, because although they became three distinct souls with three distinct stories, at the deepest level they truly are one thing, three faces of a single act of devotion, three sleepers holding one seal, united in the end by the dream they share. There is a fountain, too, in the heart of the great rain-drowned city, a monument raised in the kingdom's better days, and upon it stand carved figures of the three dreamers alongside the Hollow Knight, honouring the ones who would hold the kingdom's fate. To pass that fountain in the ruins and see the three of them carved there, remembered, honoured, is to feel the weight of what they gave and the gratitude the kingdom once held for them. The water still runs, or once ran, over those carved figures, the way the rain runs over everything in that city, washing them, weeping over them, keeping their memory bright even as everything else fades. A kingdom that raises a monument to its sleepers is a kingdom that understood what it owed them, and that understanding survives in stone long after the voices that spoke it have gone silent. And there is the matter of the seals themselves, the three marks upon the great black egg where the Hollow Knight is bound. 3 seals, one for each dreamer, visible on the outside of the temple, and as each dreamer is released, one seal fades until the temple stands open at last. It is a simple image, but a powerful one. 3 locks on a single door, 3 sleepers each holding one, the whole terrible containment resting on the shared and steady dreaming of 3 souls who agreed to give up their waking lives. When all 3 seals are gone, the door opens, and the long age of the dreamers comes to its end. Let us think, too, about the one they were holding shut, the Hollow Knight itself, because it deepens the whole story, and because there is a strange tenderness even there. The Hollow Knight was a vessel, a child of the deep dark, raised to be empty so that it could contain the burning light. But it was not truly empty, and the flaw that doomed the plan was, at its heart, a capacity for feeling, a flicker of a bond, a trace of love for the king who made it. The very thing that made the ceiling fail was the thing that made the Hollow Knight a person rather than a mere container. There is a deep sadness in that, and a deep gentleness too. The plan failed because the vessel had a heart. And the three dreamers spent an age holding shut a door against a nightmare. And behind that door, all the while, was not merely a nightmare, but a suffering child, bound and burning, holding the light inside itself as best it could, for as long as it could, out of a love it was never supposed to have. The whole terrible arrangement, the dreamers and the seal and the vessel and the light, was held together in the end by love, and undone in the end by love, and there is something almost unbearably gentle in that, once you see it. And there is a further tenderness, which is that the small knight who came to release the dreamers and to reach the Hollow Knight was, itself, a sibling of the one it came to free, another child of the deep dark, another vessel, one who had been cast out and had wandered and had now returned. So the whole final movement of the story is in a sense a family reunion, terrible and sorrowful and loving all at once. One lost child coming home to free another, to take up the burden the first had carried, to end the long suffering behind the sealed door. And the dreamers, in being released, made that reunion possible. They held the door until the sibling could come. They kept the suffering child safe, in their way, held gently behind their seal, until the one who could truly help finally arrived. There is a whole web of love in that, running through even the darkest parts of the story. The love of siblings, the love of the sleepers who held the line, the love of a child who came home. It is a sorrowful story, the story of the dreamers, but it is not, in the end, a loveless one. It is full of love, from beginning to end, every thread of it, and that is a gentle thing to know as the night grows deep. And what did their release finally lead to? The breaking of the three seals opened the temple of the Black Egg at last, and allowed the small knight to reach the Hollow Knight, and to take up the terrible burden that the vessel had carried for so long. There are different ways the story can end, different fates for the kingdom and its burning sickness, and I will not walk through all of them tonight, because the fine detail of the endings is a maze of its own, and this is an hour for softness rather than for maps. But the shape of it is this: because the dreamers gave up their seals, because they were finally released, the possibility of a true ending opened, an ending in which the burning light might be not merely contained but confronted, not merely postponed but truly answered. Their long labor of holding was not wasted. It bought the kingdom the time it needed. It held the line until someone could come who might do more than hold. And when that someone came, the dreamers stepped aside and let their long sleep end and made the true ending possible. There is a way of seeing the dreamers then, not as a failure, not as a sad postponement of an inevitable defeat, but as the patient bridge between one age and the next. They could not defeat the sickness themselves. They knew that, or came to know it. What they could do was hold and wait and keep the kingdom's fate in balance across the long, dark years, so that when the moment finally came, the door could be opened and the true reckoning could begin. They were the ones who held the world steady in the long night, so that a new morning could come. And whether or not they ever knew it, whether or not they ever woke to see it, their holding made all the difference. Nothing they gave was wasted. Every year of their endless dreaming was a year that kept hope alive, and in the quiet places of the kingdom, their memory endures. The memorial in the resting ground still stands, honoring the three who slept for the world. The stories of them still drift through the ruins, in old tablets and faded murals, and the fading memories of the few who remain. Monomon the teacher, who gave herself for knowledge and a better ending. Lurien the watcher, who gave himself for love and loyalty and asked nothing in return. Hera the beast, who gave herself for a daughter she barely knew. Three great souls, remembered still, honored still, their long sacrifice woven forever into the deepest foundations of the fallen kingdom they died to save. But before the very end, let us drift back through the three of them one last time, slowly, and gather up everything we have learned, the way you might turn over three smooth stones in your hand before setting them down, because there is a deep comfort in returning to a story you already know, and letting it carry you the rest of the way down. Monomon the teacher, the scholar, the jellyfish who drifted in her glowing tank in the fog, surrounded by the knowledge of a kingdom. She wanted to understand the world, and she spent her life gathering understanding, and she taught it freely to any who would learn. She loved her apprentice Quirrell, and she trusted him with the task of sealing her away, and she sent him out into the world to forget and to be free. And she alone among the three came to believe, in the depths of her endless dream, that the seal ought to break, that reason pointed toward release, that the truest wisdom was to let the long postponement end. She held her seal faithfully anyway, because she had agreed to, but she hoped for its ending, and in the end her hope was answered, and her old student came home to sit beside her as she was finally released. Hers is the story of a mind that never stopped thinking, even in sleep, and of the gentle homecoming that closed the circle of her long devotion. Lurien the watcher, the devoted one, the hooded sage in his high tower above the endless rain, keeping his patient vigil over the city he loved through his great telescope, night and day, year upon year. He served his king and his city with a loyalty so pure it needed no reason and asked no reward, and when he was asked to give up everything, he gave it gladly, without hesitation, without bargain, and in his endless dream he held to his bond with an unwavering faith. Remain, 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 keeping the seal, not because he had weighed it and found it wise, but because he had promised, and a promise, to Lurien, was everything. His faithful knights guarded his tower long after the kingdom fell, and when at last he was released, his body simply vanished, his long watch finally, gently over. His is the story of pure devotion, of the beauty and the sorrow of a loyalty that never wavers, of a soul that wanted nothing more than to serve, and was given the chance to serve forever. Hera the beast, the mother, the spider queen of the deep dark, proud and fierce and formidable, sovereign of the wild labyrinth of Deep Nest. She did not give herself freely, and she did not give herself for knowledge. She drove a hard bargain, a queen's bargain, and the price she set was a child, a daughter, an heir to leave behind before she sank into her endless sleep. And so she had Hornet, and she held her for the briefest time, and then she lay down in the deep dark and left the raising of that child to others, dreaming ever after of the daughter she barely knew. And that daughter grew up to guard her sleeping mother, and to stand aside, at the end, with terrible loving acceptance, and let that long sleep be brought to a close. Hers is the story of love reaching across an impossible distance, of a mother who gave up her child in the same breath she gained her, and dreamed of her still across all the long dark years. Three souls, a scholar, a servant, a mother, knowledge, loyalty, love. Three sleepers in 3 quiet chambers, holding one seal, dreaming one dream, keeping one kingdom's hope alive with the strength of their endless rest. That is the story of the dreamers, and it is nearly told now, and you are nearly asleep, and both of those things are exactly as they should be. And notice, if you will, how the 3 of them together make something whole, something complete, that none of them could make alone. A mind, a heart, and a will. The scholar who thinks, the servant who loves, the mother who protects, reason and devotion, and fierce guardianship. It is as though the kingdom, in choosing its 3 dreamers, reached for the 3 great faculties of any soul and asked one of each to hold the seal, so that the lock was made not of one kind of strength, but of all of them together, thought and feeling, and will braided into a single unbreakable bond. And perhaps that is why it held so long, against such odds, through such ruin, because it was made of everything, because it was made of the whole of what it means to care about something and to give yourself to it. 3 souls, 3 kinds of love, 1 seal, 1 dream, 1 long faithful holding of the world. There is one more thought I want to give you before we drift into the long quiet close, and it is the gentlest one of all. The dreamers teach us that there is a kind of rest that is also a gift. We tend to think of rest as something we take for ourselves, a stopping, a withdrawal, a turning away from the world and its demands. And it is that, and that is good and necessary. But the dreamers show us that rest can also be a kind of giving, that to lie down and be still can itself be an act of love, a way of holding something together, a way of keeping watch, a way of serving the world even in stillness. Their sleep held up a kingdom, their dreaming kept a nightmare at bay, their rest was the most active love imaginable. And so, as you lie here now, sinking toward your own sleep, you might let yourself feel that your rest, too, is not nothing, not a mere absence, not a giving up. It is a restoring, it is a gathering of strength. It is, in its own quiet way, a holding together of your own small world, so that tomorrow you can rise and carry what you carry, and love what you love. Rest is not the opposite of devotion. Sometimes it is devotion's truest form. And there is a comfort, too, in knowing that you do not have to earn your rest the way the dreamers earned theirs, through such enormous sacrifice, through the giving up of everything. Your rest is simpler than that, and gentler, and it is freely yours. You do not have to hold a seal to deserve to sleep. You do not have to save a kingdom to be allowed to close your eyes. You have done enough today, whatever you did, simply by making your way through it, simply by carrying what you carried and meeting what you met. That is enough. That has always been enough. And now the day is done, and the night is here, and your rest is waiting for you, freely given, asking nothing, the way the deep, true sleep was finally given to the 3 great souls who held the world together in the dark. You may take it now. You may lie down into it. You have earned it simply by living the day, and it is yours. So let the dreamers teach you how to sleep tonight, not the vigilant sleep that holds and strains and labors, but the true sleep, the released sleep, the sleep of a burden finally set down. You do not have to hold any seal tonight. You do not have to keep any watch. You do not have to guard any door or dream any purpose or hold anything together by force of will. That was their long task, and it is finished now, and they have been released, and so may you be. Tonight we're drifting into the peaceful world of quantum mechanics, the deep kind, the kind with nothing left to do. Let Monomon teach you to lay down your thinking. All day the mind works, gathering, sorting, reasoning, worrying at problems the way she worried at the mysteries of her kingdom. But even the greatest scholar in Hallownest, in the end, laid her thinking down and sank into the quiet of her dream. And so may you. You do not have to solve anything tonight. You do not have to understand anything, or figure anything out, or work at any problem in the dark. You may let your busy thinking mind grow soft and slow and finally still, the way Monomans did, drifting gently in the quiet, with nothing left to reason about. Let the thoughts settle like silt in still water. Let the mind go quiet. There will be time enough for thinking in the morning. Let Lurien teach you to lay down your watching. All day some part of you keeps watch, stays alert, scans for what might go wrong, holds itself ready the way he held himself ready at the top of his tower. But even the most faithful watcher in Hallownest was finally allowed to close his eyes and rest. And so are you. You do not have to keep watch tonight. Nothing needs guarding while you sleep. You may let the watchful part of you stand down, lay aside its vigil, close its ever-open eye, and rest. The world will keep turning without your watching it. You are allowed, tonight, to look away and sleep. Let Hera teach you to lay down your holding. All day you carry things, hold things, keep things close and safe, the way she held her love for her daughter close in the deep dark. But even the fierce queen of Deepnest, in the end, sank into the warm dark and let herself rest. And so may you. You do not have to hold anything tonight. You may open your hands and set down whatever you were carrying and let it rest beside you until morning, and sink into the warm dark the way she did, safe and wrapped and hidden, with nothing left to hold but the softness of your own sleep. So let it all grow soft now, and quiet and still, the way the whole kingdom grew quiet and still around its 3 sleeping souls. Let the teacher's archives go dim and gentle, the soft blue-green light lowering, the jellyfish creatures drifting slowly through the fog outside, rising and falling, glowing faintly, unhurried, at peace. The knowledge of a kingdom resting quietly on its shelves, nothing left to study tonight, nothing left to understand, only the soft hum of a great library at rest. And Monomon drifting in her glowing tank, released now, truly resting, her long thinking done, her hope answered, floating gently in the soft light with nothing left to hold. Let her rest, she earned it, more than almost anyone. Let the fog drift and the light glow soft, and the great scholar sleep. Let the watcher's spire go quiet above the endless rain, the soft silver patter of the rain falling forever over the pale and beautiful city, washing the spires clean, hushing the empty streets. The great telescope standing still at the top of the tower, its long watch over now, and Lurien released, his faithful vigil finally set down, his bond finally, gently loosed, resting at last above the city he loved with nothing left to guard. Let him rest. The rain will keep falling over his city, soft and endless, whether he watches or not, and he can sleep now, deeply, with his watch complete. Let the rain fall, and the tower stand quiet, and the faithful watcher sleep. Let the beast's den go warm and dark and still in the deepest heart of the world, the soft silk wrapping everything close and safe, far from all noise, far from all demand, tucked away in the deepest, warmest, most secret place there is. And Hera released, the fierce, proud queen finally at rest, her long dream of her daughter carried gently to its close, sleeping deep in the warm dark with her child watching over her. Let her rest. Her daughter is safe and grown and strong, and the queen can sleep now, deeply, in the soft closed dark, with her heart still full of the one she loved. Let the dark be warm, and the silk be soft, and the sleeping queen rest. 3 sleepers released, 3 burdens set down, 3 long watches complete, and the whole kingdom around them settling into its deep and gentle quiet, the rain falling, the fog drifting, the dark growing warm, everything finally still. Let the whole kingdom of Hallownest go quiet now, all of it, from the highest windswept cliff to the deepest silken den. Let the empty cities rest, their pale spires glimmering softly in the dark, their streets washed clean and quiet by the endless gentle rain. Let the green places rest, the overgrown gardens and the mossy halls, growing slowly in the dark, patient and unhurried. Let the deep places rest, the tunnels and the dens and the hidden ways, warm and close and still. Let the whole vast beautiful ruin settle into its long quiet, no longer a place of sickness or sorrow, but simply a place of rest, an enormous and gorgeous quiet, where everything at last lies down and breathes out and is still. Let the fog drift softly over the archives where the scholar dreamed. Let the rain fall gently over the tower where the watcher kept his endless watch. Let the warm dark wrap close around the den where the mother slept dreaming of her child. 3 quiet places, 3 released souls, and all around them a kingdom finally at peace, the long age of holding finally over, the long watch finally ended, the long dream finally, gently, complete. And you, here, now, in your own warm and quiet place, may set down whatever you were holding to, whatever seal you have been keeping, whatever watch you have been standing, whatever door you have been holding shut by force of will through all the long hours of the day. You may let it go now, gently, the way the dreamers let go, the way the whole kingdom let go, the way the rain lets go of the lake above and falls, softly, endlessly, asking nothing, needing nothing, simply falling into rest. There is nothing left for you to hold tonight. There is nothing left for you to guard. There is no purpose you must keep dreaming, no burden you must keep carrying, no line you must keep holding against the dark. The long task is finished for tonight, and you are released, and you may sleep the deep, true sleep, the released sleep, the sleep of someone who has done enough and may finally rest. Let your breathing slow and lengthen, soft and easy, like the breathing of a sleeper sinking deeper into a gentle dream. Let your thoughts grow soft at the edges and blur and drift, the way the fog drifts, the way the rain falls, the way the deep dark wraps itself warm and close around a sleeping queen. There is nowhere you need to be. There is nothing you need to do. There is only this soft quiet and this warm stillness and the deep gentle rest that is waiting to take you. Feel how heavy and warm your body has become, sinking down into the softness beneath you, the way a sleeper sinks down into the deep of a dream. Feel the days holding loosen in your hands, the days watching soften behind your eyes, the days thinking grow slow and quiet and still. There is nothing left to grip, there is nothing left to guard, there is nothing left to work out. Everything you were carrying, you have set down, and it is resting now beside you, and it will keep until morning, and you do not have to touch it again tonight. You are free of it. You are light. You are sinking, gently, into the deep, true rest that the dreamers themselves were finally given. Picture the three quiet chambers one last time, growing dim and soft and still. The glowing archive in the drifting fog, its light lowering. The scholar at peace. The high tower above the endless rain, its watch ended, the watcher at rest. The warm silk den in the deepest dark, the queen sleeping deep, her love safe beside her. Three peaceful places, three released souls, and all around them a whole kingdom breathing out at last, settling into the deep and gentle quiet that comes when every burden is finally set down. And you, drifting among them now, welcomed into the same deep rest, held by the same soft quiet, sinking down into the same gentle dark. Rest now. The archives glow soft in the drifting fog, and the rain falls gentle over the quiet city, and the deep dark wraps warm around the sleeping queen, and three great souls who held the whole world together with their dreaming are finally, gently, at peace. Their long watch is over. Their burden is set down, and so is yours, tonight. There is nothing left to hold. There is only the soft dark, and the deep quiet and rest. Sleep now, gently, the way the dreamers sleep at last, released and quiet and deep, with nothing left to hold, and nothing left to guard, and nothing left to do but rest. The kingdom is quiet, the rain is soft, the dark is warm, and you are safe, and you are held, and you may finally let go. Good night. Sleep deeply. The long watch is over, and the burden is set down, and you are released, and you may rest.